Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, lover? You survived another spin class with me this
We
morning.
survived spin. I'd be curious to know who else is working out right now. I'm not loving going to workout classes, despite the fact that I think Where We Spin is doing a really good job of keeping things safe. I don't feel super safe. So, whatever, it's a concession I've made because Dr. Mary likes to spin. Who knew? That'll be its own topic someday.
I just keep on folding like a flower.
Don't we all? Okay, so actually today the topic is the third leg of the stool. This is probably the single most important lesson. Not that Dr. Mary learned. I can't speak to what the most important lesson he learned was, but I can promise you it was the single most important lesson that I learned in this journey. And what was most shocking was that I had as much to take ownership of and to take blame for and to change in my own life as Dr. Mary did. And that was probably, well, it was so important for me because I think when you're not the addict, it's really easy to just say everything is the addict's fault. And this was a super important lesson for me. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. Do you want to introduce it?
Um, no, you can. Because when I start introducing it, you always say, no, you're doing it wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'll
okay.
work on that.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just go for it, go. We've only got 10 minutes.
Okay, so part of Dr. Mary getting to leave inpatient rehab at Prairie St. John's was that we had to agree to 4 sessions of marriage counseling. And so obviously we agreed. I mean, we had talked through the years about trying to go to therapy. I was much more interested in it than Dr. Mary was. Unfortunately, our insurance never covered it. So we never felt like it was an investment we could make, which was probably a pretty significant mistake. Maybe we would have discovered your addiction problems sooner had we invested in that. So that's one tip.
But the other thing is that, here's another tip, is don't dwell on what could have been. Just go with what you've got.
That's true. You have to stop tapping. It's right by the microphone. You can totally hear it. I listened to yesterday's podcast. I know you can hear it. Okay. So we went to the first session with a therapist at Prairie St. John's. I'm sorry, this is a focus side note. They're not doing that program anymore, I don't think. And I think that's really a shame because, wow, was he helpful for us. So
yes, he was.
We got there. He knew that Dr. Mary was in treatment, but that's all he really knew about us. So he listened to us talk a little bit. And I would say by the time we got there, had you left or you were still in? You were still there, I think.
When we started with him, because we saw him every other week, I'd actually been able to come home, but I was still going during the day.
Okay, so this would have been about 7 or 8 weeks after February 1st when Dr. Mary went to the hospital.
Yeah, that'll be about right.
He was gone for 6.5 weeks entirely, never came home in that whole time, came home and then went to day treatment. So this man listened to us and then he drew a picture of a triangle, basically, or a stool. And you can't have a stool with 2 legs. You can only have a stool with a minimum of 3 legs. And he said to Maz, what's the third leg of your stool? It's you and Dana and what? And you said?
Well, I thought about it. I'd been going to very good therapy and realised that I wasn't perfect and not lying was a good point to this. So I actually told him the truth. It was Dana, myself, and at that time, Jim Bean.
Okay, so I'm listening to this thinking, good for you, Maz, this is a big step forward. And then he turned to me and he said, and what's the third leg of your stool? And, wow, I was pretty taken aback, actually. And I thought about it for a minute. And of course, what I had to say was Quinn, my biological son, our son. And As soon as I said that, and he wrote it down at the top of the triangle, I realized that I had never prioritized Mass. Quinn and I were this package. I brought Quinn home from the hospital by myself. His dad is in his life, but we were never married. And his dad's extended family has been spectacular. I mean, Quinn's got a great network. That's not what this is about. But it was Quinn and me at its core. I brought that baby home from the hospital. I bought this house initially by myself, and it was just Quinn and me. We had been together almost 7 years when we got married, but we never lived together. So from 0 until 12, it was really Quinn and me, despite the fact that in all the years that we dated, you were a massive, massive assistant and co-parent in so many ways.
That's nice of you to say.
Well, it's true. So
It's nice to hear too.
that's good. So as soon as I realized that, I could do a number of things. One, I could take ownership of my own contribution to this relationship. Two, I could stop feeling like it was 100% his fault and that I was 100% blameless. Three, I could make a shift. Now, I'll say it was perhaps a little bit easier for me than for many people because Quinn was 21 Quinn turned 21 right before you went into rehab. So he was an adult for all intents and purposes. He was 3 years into college. He was pretty well launched at that point. Had he been 8, 9, 10, it might have been harder for me to decide, boy, I'm going to equally prioritize you like a Mr. Lallam. What's a perfect triangle where all the angles are the same?
I'd like to point out now that my PhD is in plant biochemistry. And I don't know.
Okay, well, one of these. Sorry, Mr. Lallam. This is why I got a C in 10th grade geometry. I can't even remember this. This guy. Me, Maz, Quinn.
I can imagine people reaching for their phone to Google this.
Yeah, go ahead and Google it and put it in the notes, please, because I'd love to know. Anyway, it's harder, I think, to do that when your children are young. And it's virtually impossible to do what I kind of decided to do, which was not to keep this thing equal, but to do one of those ones where maybe you have a 90-degree angle and this. And a right angle triangle. Okay. Whatever it is, where you really put the emphasis on one angle. I put the emphasis almost entirely, because I could, into the corner that I didn't just view as me or didn't just view as Maz. I decided to view as us. And as soon as I was able to do that, because Maz was already working on it, Maz had already let go of the third leg of his stool. So when his third leg became us and my third leg became us, then guess what? We became the joint priority. And it wasn't about me at any point from that moment on really saying, well, because you started drinking, I was able to let go of a lot of the anger and the sadness and the discombobulation that had come because of that, because I had a role to play in it too. And it no longer mattered who did what. It was about the new triangle.
It's important to remember that if you're listening to this or watching this and you are the addict, you have to take responsibility for the fact that these two triangles formed in the first place. It was equally our fault, and I think the way he actually explained it to me, and we were going to couples therapy, but I had therapy on my own with someone else at the same time. And we talked about this stuff too, and it was the fact that if I understand that, yes, I prioritized the alcohol, but it was a vicious circle as well, that I felt like I was being pushed out. So, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'll have a drink and feel better.
And sorry to interrupt, but the more he drank, the more I
Yeah,
focused
that
on
was
Quinn.
so then I felt, then Dane, of course, who'd want to talk, who'd actually want to invest in someone who was just sat in the basement. So everything got worse. And then that whole thing with the milking stool or the triangle actually just worked. It made us think, yeah, we're both addressing what's wrong. And then if we can come back to saying, well, this is out the way we can reach for each other, it worked.
Well, and you know what it really did? Is it actually sort of created a whole new triangle paradigm, or maybe actually a square paradigm that also allowed us to include Quinn back into our matrix. Maz and Quinn have their own relationship. Quinn and I have our own relationship. Quinn and Maz and I have our own relationship. And it all just worked so much better. It was so much more stable. So the point of today is if you're not the addict, you probably still have something you're focusing on that's taking away from where you really want the focus to be, which is on your partner and your joint relationship. So, you know, shopping, friends, social media, um, controlling your weight, exercise, credit card debt. There's a million things, and it's easier sometimes to point to the addicts things because that's gambling or addiction or alcohol or drugs or pornography or golfing or whatever it is. Wherever your focus is primarily going, that's not on your person and on your joint relationship, you're going to have an unbalanced stool. And the point is really to try to work for balance, not to give up the other things unless they're, physically damaging or emotionally damaging or those kinds of things. I didn't give up my relationship with Quinn. You didn't have to give up your relationship with Quinn.
No,
We just
I think it's better.
it's way better. We reprioritized, we balanced the stool. So that's the tip for today. Help the help your addict maybe name where their focus is, but be equally willing and ready to name where yours is too. It levels the playing field, and I think was probably the most important step we made towards our new normal because it was a realization we both had to address and we both made together.
And another thing, as the addict, you just have to remember that one of the important lessons you'll learn if you go into rehab is that you are not perfect. And I know it's a shock to everyone. I thought I could fix myself. Horribly wrong. Talk about that one later. But you have to admit responsibility for it and things that come through. This started a healing process, and you have your ups and downs. We'll talk about those later as well. But it started everything going in the right direction. So just think of the stool.
Yeah, 3 legs minimum, but you really want equal balance.
Equilateral triangle.
All right, an equilateral triangle, all equal on all sides. Good job. Well done.
I'm going to go and lie down now.
So we started a list of the topics that we want to address because, this is going to be a Monday through Friday thing for us. So that means we got to have a lot of content. The list actually came pretty fast and furious for us. But as we said the other day, if there are things that you would like us to talk about, questions that you have, obviously we will never reveal that you wrote to us. But know that you are not alone and that if you're wondering about something, we might have an answer to it. Not the answer,
Yeah.
but an answer.
Something that worked for us or didn't work, or something that
Just something we're
just
thinking
makes
about.
sense. I mean, you gotta find your own logic for this.
So send them my way. Don't forget, you can go to extraordinaryextraordinary.com and you'll see a section that says Dr. Mary and me. If you go to that section, you can go all the way back to the beginning of this journey. If you're wondering what we're talking about, we did this 9-week series, 27 posts of writing, video, and podcast. If you're curious, go back and start that journey with us because this is just the next phase of that. All right, it's 14:52. Time to
Oh.
be done for the day.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.